So therefore, who can give reason of the hope? And this has been with us for 460 years, and I hope that it continues, for 410 years. Now, Ratio Studiorum is exactly 410 years. Such concerns form part of an all-round quest for excellence. Academic excellence, not least, which is also constitutive of Jesuit education. So that doesn't mean that we neglect academic excellence. This is also constitutive. We are committed to form highly educated learners in our schools who will value inquiry and intellect. The pursuit of excellence, however, is never to be seen as an end in itself, but rather as a means of enabling them the better to serve society at large in its many needs. So we are against a culture of superficiality, and I think we are at the risk now of making our cultures of superficiality. All the information is at the fingertips, just a button, and Google, Wikipedia, everything. Just click and you get the information, but there is no understanding, there is no depth, there is no confirmation on anything deep. That information never goes to our hearts, and then we don't grow. So we would say we are looking for an excellence that is not measured on success in the market, but is measured on the growth of the person. The third point, I will go faster. The third point is service of others and social justice. This is, because everything is important, this is a very important point. The emphasis on service as the fruit of Jesuit education is not new. From the beginning, it was understood that our schools should produce those who would exercise responsibility and visionary leadership in civic society. So there is a long history, and as you know, in our schools today, we have a lot of programs for exposure, for contact with other people, and this is an enrichment for our schools, for our understanding, and for our life. The gospel is made credible by the care we show for those most in need. We believe by hearing, St. Paul says. Well, in Asia, I would say by hearing and mostly by seeing. And when they listen to us missionaries preach, they are looking very intently to see whether what we are saying comes from the heart or is just words and words. No? A nice lecture that we have prepared. So there is this sense of the inside of the person. There is and it's in caring for others that this has a convincing power. And Mother Teresa is extremely popular in Japan. Christians or non-Christians, because they see there something. So I see, and I am very comforted by seeing here, as well as in the United States and in other places of the society where I have been, that all our educational institutions, universities and schools have all kinds of outreach programs, so that the students grow in contact with humanity, not in contact with my special group, but in contact with humanity. And as we said in the Mass, humanity is a suffering humanity. If we are not in touch with the suffering, how are we going to learn from these little children of Rwanda who can dance in spite of everything? So therefore, these I think, very much important. And in this, I have to thank the Jesuits, the program of Jesuit International Volunteers, the people who have contributed, the volunteers themselves, Father Liam O'Connell from the community here, who has been so important in this movement, and so forth. Why is all this important? Because the question of justice and injustice, of inclusion and exclusion. The poor were before the really people who didn't have enough to live. Those were the poor, the destitute. Then it became the proletariat. Then it became the segregated. Now we call them the excluded. The excluded. People who have no access to what culture is offering us in terms of possibilities, in terms of training, education, and formation. And so we ask ourselves, can we give our students a passion about justice and injustice based on faith, not ideology, based in fact on Christ himself? Can those who leave schools live with a sensitivity and love for the good to such an extent that they experience a sense of outrage and upset when they see injustice? Can we give them a willingness to speak out and to do so even if it means paying whatever cost has to be paid? These are questions for today's educators in Ireland, and especially in Irish Jesuit schools. The fourth element, I will go fast, simply mentioning the points. The fourth element is love of the church, love of the church. It's not an easy thing today, because we hear so many reports, and we have met, especially as we grow in age, we have met priests who are not that inspiring. Jesuits, maybe, who are not so much what we thought a Jesuit should be, etc. So we have these experiences. But when Jesuits were founded, when St. Ignatius began, the church was in real decadence. And we had big problems with popes who were decadent. It came after, there is a book by a woman historian, Karen Armstrong, about the ship of fools or something like this, no? How people work against its own interest. And she speaks particularly about 6 popes in a row. Right after those 6 popes, one of them was Alexander Borgia, Spaniard. And after those popes, we had the popes that St. Ignatius knew, who were also a mixed bag. And yet Ignatius is the man with great love for the church and a great commitment to serve the church, because it's with human tools that God works. And if we cannot work with human tools, we will never love our spouses, we will never love our children, we will never love our parents, we will never love anybody, because we are all imperfect. And it's when we deal with imperfection that we mature, When we want only the perfect, we will be very clean for a window shop, or for a shop window, no? But not human beings for life. So love of the church, I think, is a real challenge, and I think is a challenge that is worth facing, because it's in the church that we have learned to love Christ. It's in the church that we have learned so many things about our own selves, about God, about reality. What could we have done in the past? Perhaps, because I had a reference here to the fact that sometimes we were not so responsible. Perhaps we might have produced in the past sooner more articulate critics of our society. Maybe we should have developed more of this critical sense and this imagination and this creativity that we consider so important for education. But we can only start now from where we are. Our task in this regard now is to help our students to love the church, to engage with it. Imperfect church. The biggest scandals come from those who have the biggest expectations.